and welcome to another episode of DAWNCast. My name is Kathy Ngo.
And I'm Di Lee, and today we are joined by Ronan Leonard. Ronan has, I came across Ronan's profile on LinkedIn, and I thought it was very interesting how we connected, Ronan, in terms of that story a few weeks ago when you chose to go out and eat in a restaurant, and you called out for people to support local businesses, which I think was rightly so at that time of before the whole lockdown kind of got, the decree to lock down. And there were people who were saying yes, and there were people who were kind of saying, what were you doing? What do you think you're doing? And I thought
the outcry and the outrage.
Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting to get your perspective. And this whole COVID-19 seems to kind of really engulf us, hasn't it? And I just think there has to be something to break through that, to have a conversation around it that's not coming from fear, but coming from understanding and getting some insight. So I just thought I'd bring you on board and to provide us with the insights that you have in dealing with businesses and what your perspective is.
Actually, tell us more about that post, because I haven't actually seen that post before. So, what did you post, and how did people react? Because Di said that people were like, "What the WTF?" So, what was the post?
What I basically said was that until we were told otherwise, that we were going to go out, my wife and I, and support our local restaurants. I think we had out 3 nights in a row, which we don't normally do, because we knew that the shutdown was going to happen. So we practiced safe distancing, and even one of the restaurants already had, a Vietnamese restaurant, already had the hand sanitizer out there. So they were ahead of the game, most people. So we were really only following advice. There was no advice saying that you couldn't do it. So we knew that in a week or two or whatever that happened, they're going to shut them down. And the reality is probably a third of the restaurants in Australia probably won't ever open again. So we were trying to do our bit. We didn't know what was going to happen, what it was going to look like on the other side. We just trying to do our little bit to support our own local community and the restaurants that we want to see when we come back, not necessarily the chains, the big ones that have plenty of money and deep pockets, but your small independent ones that make the diversity that we love. So we were just trying to support them.
And I think there are quite a few people, and I think including myself, we said that's fantastic, and I think there are people who said yes, we can support that. I mean, we have now seen so many of those businesses that we were going to support a few weeks ago are now really facing they're going to die, don't you think?
Yeah, it's an incredibly challenging time for just about everybody. One of the things that struck me very early on is that I'm surrounded by a lot of people who have a lot of positive attitude and have a mindset. So everything we base everything on is beliefs. So some people were telling me that I was wrong based on a belief. They started again very quickly giving me information that wasn't even true. So that when this first happened, what I was saying to people that I knew, and the advice I was giving, is that the first thing to do is that as humans, what happens is that we hear something, then we believe it. If we've got enough time, energy, and mental bandwidth, we'll go and check the veracity of that information and find out whether it's actually true or not. But what happens very quickly is all this information comes to you, and then people just started sprouting these things that weren't true. So there was this whole misinformation out there. And the second part of this is that the world as we know it has changed, whether we like it or not. So how we react to that is very similar to the stages of a bereavement. We're kind of going through grief, denial. There's going to be some acceptance. There's going to be anger. You're probably already starting to see in the last couple of weeks. There's more posts where they see something wrong. There's now starting to be more anger around that. We need then to come through the other side of acceptance and moving on and what that looks like. So it's a very similar process, but it's going to be different for everybody. Some people are going to recover quite quickly. Some people are going to take a lot longer.
And your work, Ronan, I mean, is that guiding businesses through that process of a crisis like this?
Well, we're really about how businesses can stay relevant, and how we do that is that we actually map, and I talk about beliefs all the time, we map the beliefs of an organization either internally what does the CEO, what does the C-suite, what does everyone kind of think about the company, their purpose, their mission, their values, and ensure that that's aligned with their employees for that engagement. And externally, we do that for their customers. What's really important to your customer? And it's all around beliefs and concerns. And so the other side of this, a lot of businesses need to figure out, am I still relevant? What I offered before this happened, is that still relevant now? And where is the sentiment shifted? And it's going to shift massively. It's going to shift about what our values are, I believe, and this is just my personal opinion, about our values are towards certain brands, towards what we think about money, what we think about the government, how they've handled that. All of those things is very much up in the air. So what we do is we help businesses to realign with their customers and internally, and make sure that what they're talking about, their mission, their purpose, their values, are better aligned and relevant still with those stakeholders.
What do you? I mean, you talk a lot about the beliefs. I mean, obviously, how I think our belief system is going to shift now, isn't it? It's about. I think people are still even lost in terms of what we used to believe is being challenged so much now. What are you hearing from those individuals, from those businesses? Because how do you know what the customers want now at the moment, at this point in time, because everybody seems to be in a panic mode? That's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's still early. It's still early to know what's going to happen, because we're not out the other side right now. So most people that are in this position, if you've got a business, you're in sort of survival mode, unless you're in one of the few industries that have needed a response to this, and then you're in the opposite. You're in, oh my God, how can I cope with all this extra work? But for the majority of them, it's almost the unknown. So the people that have pivoted quite quickly, your small gyms doing some of the stuff online, those kinds of things. I've got friends in that space, and very quickly I was asking them, how can I help you? And they said, oh, we're looking to pivot. That happened quite quickly. But you're right, the rest of it on the other side is still very much an unknown, and so at this stage we can't really predict that, or can't even try to think about it. But the most strongest businesses will start to be thinking about that very soon, the next couple of weeks. What does the next 90 days, 180, 360 look like? And how can I make sure that coming out this other side, when whatever happens and we start to get back to some kind of normality, and we don't know what that looks like, that we're ready for that. That it's not just business as usual, or it's not just, here's my business model, I'm going to go back to this and hope that it's going to be the same.
Ronan, I was just looking at your bio, and you've worked in the cruise industry, the travel industry. Also, you've worked as a high-level casino management. And I think they're all aspects that COVID-19 really hates at the moment. So how did you made a pivot yourself from doing all that and into the leadership coaching space? So I feel as though like you've already built this resilience and pivoting, changing over the years. But I'm wondering, like, they're quite different industry. How did you get into that?
Well, casinos are really, and in its core essence, I've thought about this quite a bit, it's actually understanding human behavior. People don't gamble to win money, let's be honest, right? The house has a huge advantage. It always wins. So it's the underlying beliefs around that people gamble for every other reason other than they actually know deep down they're not going to win. So that was a fascinating insight into people. I had for a decade just to sort of watch them, losing. One guy lost $100,000 in a week.
God.
And at the end of the cruise, he shook my hand and said, "Thank you very much. I had a great time."
Wow.
Other people would be jumping off the boat saying, this is the end of my life. So there's perspective around those things. But I ran my own events business for over a decade. And then I got into the mastermind space, and this ability to see things differently, to start to understand that some of the hidden beliefs that are holding us back, that we don't really see ourselves until we surround ourselves with the people that have different way of thinking, have different ideas, and that can augment our skill sets, our expertise, our experience. And eventually that led me to start this current business with my mentor who's based in the US.
And that's providing mentoring and coaching to businesses, to leaders, or anyone, or are there particular group of people that you provide that service to?
So we predominantly work with mid-range companies, the mid-cap sort of market, and it's using the belief systems and mapping all that out to say that you're relevant, and then using AI to ensure that what you talk about, your belief systems, your values, all of those internal kind of branding that people just say is sort of fluff and nonsense, but great brands have that buy-in and that engagement from their employees. They love working there. They truly understand the message, the core values, what they're trying to do. And the same for customers. Customers love things like Tom's Shoes, those businesses that are almost for purpose, but have a very clear, strong value proposition that we talk about beliefs again, that people just go, okay, I believe in that company. I believe what they're trying to do. And that gets you beyond, the sort of transactional marketing. So yes, we work with the CEO and down to say, let's make sure that your vision, what you're trying to achieve, is communicated incredibly effectively, but also that it is the right communication and it's what your customers or your employees are really concerned about. And we know that millennials are going to be the biggest part of the workforce in the next couple of years. They're going to reach that tipping point where they're going to be more of them than anyone else. And they all want to work for companies that have great values, that are trying to create something that change in the world, want to do something other than just sell more stuff. So it's this, again, we're going to tie into this shift with what might change. This could all align, and you might find more and more brands and more companies. They're going to shift and figure out what the market really wants now, instead of just selling them more things.
Yeah, I can vouch for that as a millennial myself, an elder millennial actually. So I just downloaded TikTok last week. Di got me onto it.
There you go. Talking about those value-based system that believes, you were just 23 when you helped rescue passengers and fellow staff when the cruise ship you worked sank off the wild coast of South Africa.
Wow.
Yes. I was incredibly green. I got my first job on cruise ships. So this is my dream job. And then within 8 weeks, we were off the coast of South Africa in this huge storm. And the ship started sinking. And most of the senior officers and crew abandoned us to jump into lifeboats, leaving us to figure out how do we get these passengers off when it wasn't our core skill or expertise. So that was a very interesting time in my life.
Yeah, how many people did you rescue? I mean, what was it like? I mean, I'm a refugee, so we escaped by boat. I was very young when our boat got stuck in this a reef, and I remember people jumping off the boat to try and get
push it out
of the reef, and people were talking about, oh my God, sharks coming and whatever. I think at the end a dolphin came to help us.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, but I'm thinking like that you jumping out to...
It's adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
Like you just got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, tell us more, like what was it going through your mind, and the people that you rescued? I mean, that would have shaped who you are today in that moment.
Yeah, well, there was almost 600 of us on board that ship, and it's one of those things that again, the reason the last couple of weeks I've been reaching out to help people is because there's no monetary involvement in that. I was just saying, how can I help you and reach out? It's clearly in my nature, but so it's not training. It's something innate that's just sort of kicked in. You talked about adrenaline. Yes, there was quite a bit of that. And you just don't know how you're going to act in this situation. And the reason I know that is that because the people that were trained to do that, and that was part of their job and their responsibility, when it happened, they panicked and kind of left us. So nobody really knows until you're put into those situations how you're going to act. So it's a very much an unknown. Obviously, if you're trained, firefighters, policemen, people in the front line, you've only got to look at the nurses right now. They're our unsung heroes, right? The people that are putting themselves right at the front line of potentially getting this disease and contracting it and happen. That's amazing. So we look at, again, I talk about beliefs and we talk about what might shift. Who's a real hero? Is it your football player that you're idolizing every week that kicks a ball around? and earns a huge amount of money, or is it someone that is prepared on a really low salary to help people right now when we're facing this huge crisis and step up and say, oh, this is my job, this is what I do. So it's almost an unknown. You don't know what the intrinsic values or what motivates people to do that. You just know that some people do and some people don't.
And shout out to their partners as well and their family members. Like I was talking to a lady who, this is when we had the bushfires, and the unsung heroes are the spouses and the partners at home who are taking care of the kids and doing all that while they are firefighting and on the front line, just rescuing everyone.
Yes, exactly. There is that ripple effect that it's not just you, it's your family as well. You could go back and infect those, or yes, the people that do those things and that support network around them. And I think that we've, for 20 years, we've talked about globalization. We talked about this global economy, and it's gone, yeah. But there's never been a single event that's affected everybody in pretty much in everyone's lifetime.
Yeah.
So this has affected everybody. So your ability to really reconnect with people on some other level than just social media, to me, is incredibly important. Which is why I've been doing it. Which is why I'm on this show now, because we've connected on a level that's more than just superficial.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you do that? It's different to everybody. Will everybody do that? Probably not. But I don't think there's ever been a more important time than to start to sort of question what you do, why you do it, what's important to you, and ask those, for some, quite difficult questions.
Yeah, look, I've and I have no doubt Kathy's gone through the same, but that have been the questions that have gone through my head about what's the purpose of my existence, first of all.
Why am I doing this?
Why am I doing this? What's the purpose of it? That's really, it's going through my head over and over. And for me, in terms of your background, Ronan, you obviously, not obviously, but did you migrate from your accent? Is like British, or have I got it wrong?
Yes, yeah, I'm originally British, yes.
So what obviously you came into Australia. What drives you? What motivated you to obviously that journey that you've made, working casinos, working on a ship, to now doing something that is profoundly impactful to try and help people to really get deep down to their understanding their belief system, so that they can actually operate at a different level. What motivated you to, in the first place to go,
Well, I've pretty much had an anti-career. I've never really figured out what I wanted to do. I just found a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And when I found that, I quit jobs. So I quit so many jobs almost instantly when I suddenly turned around and said, this isn't for me. I met my wife on cruise ships, and she was Australian, so I came to Australia, but I'd spent a decade traveling the world. So it was Australia just, kind of by accident. My wife's Australian, so that's how I came to Australia. But in answer to your question, just around that impact, is that there's a certain time in your life when you might have heard something 100 times and it resonates on the 101st. So we're all vibrating on different frequencies. We're all we are looking for what makes us happy, what motivates us, what keeps us going. For me, it's just been this sort of quest to try and improve myself. What can I do different? And then you eventually find your tribe. If you're curious enough to know more about the world, more about what your purpose is, what that happens, then eventually things kind of line up, and that's what's lined up with me. And it's the reason that we work in the mid-cap space, because we want to work with CEOs that have a mission and a purpose that's bigger than themselves. So we don't want to work with any company. We want to work with companies that say, I'm I mentioned Tom Shoes, that kind of thing, where people say, I've got a message to get out there. I've got something that's really important, that's more important than just me or my company. How do I do that? We go, great. We want to work with you because we're aligned with what you're trying to do. So it's just the perfect combination of those things. And I'm finding that all the people that I'm surrounding myself with or are introduced to me are all looking like that. They're looking at business for purpose. They're looking at what else can I do other than just make money? And that's just maybe the stage of their life. I don't know. That's how that I'm finding these people.
I was at a conference last year. Good is the New Cool. You might have heard of the book. It's
Yes,
about
yes.
yeah. So it was their first time in Sydney, and so basically they were showing that companies that I mean, it's still for profit, but the core part of their value system and belief system is about taking care of the world, being a lot more sustainable, and being kind as well. And I think it was the first time the word kindness was thrown around a lot in the corporate space, and I find that it's kind of sticking around for quite a while, which is great. Like, I love it. But where do you see that going as well? Do you see it as something that's a fad? I mean, I hope not, but like, where do you see it going?
It's hard to say how much of an impact it had, because potentially everyone might just go, certainly from government down, might just go back to let's try and just stick with what we had before that. But Kathy, you're definitely right. There's the B Corp. There are all these businesses that are looking to have some kind of impact for good. So there's a great foundation called B1G1 run by a guy called Paul Dunn, who lives out of Singapore, but he's often in Australia. And there are more and more companies that are aligning with that and saying, how can we do sort of for good? And it's the triple bottom line. It's whatever you want to call it. Just that ability to look outside the old structure. So I've looked into this. So Queen Elizabeth, when Britain was looking to grow its empire, and I'm part of that guild, they created the corporation of a company as an entity. Because prior to that, if you were a cobbler and your business went bankrupt, you went to debtor's prison. So when they were looking to expand the empire, they said, okay, if we sell a ship and you own that ship, you'll go to prison if it sinks. So they created this legal entity, which was a limited company, which allowed people to invest in something that had that liability, so that people didn't go to prison. So that was great, helped them expand the empire. But it hasn't changed in 300 years. So now people are saying, okay, well, this company, if your only remit is to just make money, and what we've seen and we know is that so many of the companies that do that, what they do is they externalize all of these issues that they pass on to someone else. So your grandchildren, your children are going to pay for the legacy of you buying a $2 pair of shoes that someone from China shipped and they put on the market here and sold it. You know that it's somewhere in this ecosystem. This costs more than $2 in fuel and cutting down rubber tree, all of those things. But they've externalized that debt to someone else. And it's not our problem, someone else's. Well, eventually it's going to be paid. So I do believe that this kindness, this for good, will increase as people realize that we can't go on the way we run businesses today.
I was listening to you before when you're talking about, that full purpose when you're working with the companies, and you speak that language whereby, you kind of view the same with me, thinking with watching what's happening, wondering if businesses and individuals and organizations and government will take that time now to really reflect on how are we going to do business, how are we going to operate, how are we going to engage with people, how are we going to procure things, are we going to do that differently? And that is for me, that is the challenge. And I wonder, are you you work with companies, have you seen an increase in that kind of for purpose? Because I think if you look around, maybe because, watching the mainstream media, which probably doesn't provide any of that insights, do you believe that there will be an increase in that kind of, it's not about dollar driven, it's not about profit driven, but it's about for purpose, for doing good. But of course you also have to have the bottom line and have some profit, but not to the extent that is going to be destroying your soul and destroying society.
It'll definitely grow. I just don't know how quick it will grow. I just don't know if enough people will come on board with that. It'll get enough traction. You talk about the mainstream media. I've stopped watching the news about 5 years ago, partly because it was so
sensationalized.
I call it passive. What you're basically saying is, you tell me what's important and I'll sit there and I'll kind of believe that, and I'll I'll go back to the thing earlier where I said about, you believe something and then you've got the time, you'll look it up and check the facts, but nobody does.
No.
So they sit there and they read something or they hear something and that's it. That's now
Bible.
Opinion, fact, on viral, without ever checking it. So I sincerely hope that there is far more debate and discussion just around everything. You've only got to look at all the casual workers. It's people that all of a sudden now, from hospitality, everything, have no jobs. Are they going to go back to then saying, well, let's go back and then let's try and find you another job where you live paycheck to paycheck and you have no security? We've lauded the gig economy for the last 10, 15 years. Or all those people that suddenly don't have any work or any workers' rights, they should be having a conversation and a voice in the room around this as well now. So potentially there is that opportunity to start to redefine what work really means and what that looks like and what business is as a reflection of that. So hopefully, yes.
What's your what do you hope that will come out of this whole COVID-19 situation? I don't even want to use the word pandemic crisis. The situation, like what do you hope for us as human beings, as business? What do you hope we will emerge out of that?
I'm sincerely hoping that there is just a slightly more awareness of what is important to each and every one of us, and as a result of that, you can maybe not get caught up in the narratives of social media or the regular media, and just figure out really what's important to you, and on an individual level, and then from that's where change comes. It really happens for those micro commitments. And to answer, the very start, the reason that we kept on supporting those restaurants, I was telling you at the very start, was because we could only do so much. I don't have access to government. I can't change government policy, but I could do my small little bit to say, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give an extra tip, trying to do that because I just knew they were going to be impacted. That was a small little sphere I could do. So I think if all of us start to look at those small little micro influences, that's how society changes. That's how legislation comes in, when enough people say this is actually what we want. In fact, legislation tends to catch up with our beliefs and our value systems. There's normally a bit of a lag behind that. So eventually policy then catches up and says, okay, we understand that the sentiment has shifted, the belief in the country has shifted. Gay marriage was a perfect example of that, that it actually took a little while for legislation to catch up when everyone's going, just change the laws. Yeah. So I hopefully that as we have more and more of these conversations, more and more people become a little bit more aware of that, then legislation and those other things catch up with where we've changed as a society.
So what's next for you in your business?
It's really just getting that message out there and working with those organizations that do have that bigger vision, the value. We're not looking to overtake the world and run a huge, massive company. Not interested. But we are interested in making that ripple effect and having that difference where we can. So that's what it looks like to us. It's not going to be, as I said, we're not looking to be the next Apple, Airbnb, none of that. We don't have world domination as our thing, but we do have.
Why not? Let's dominate the world with the sending
with kindness.
The kindness, exactly. Let's spread the kindness and goodness
and good health.
We do have a very strong purpose, and that is so important to us and other people that we attract those people. So, in answer to your question, I don't know what's going to happen the other side of this. I strongly believe that there will be more people interested in what we're doing, just because we're able to help them figure out really how relevant they are in this massively changing world that we're in. But again, we're not looking to work with companies that don't have that kind of purpose and value and mission anyway. So the people we will work with, we think will have a huge impact on them, and we'll create that ripple effect that way.
So for people who've got a purpose and who want to understand this belief system and to delve deeper, sort of to improve their business or even, as themselves, where would they go to and how to get in contact? Would you like them to get in contact with you, and, where should we send them to?
Well, the website is Trnsform.io, and there's a missing from Transform, so it's TRNSform.io. LinkedIn, I'm Ronan Leonard. I'm very active on LinkedIn, as you know, Di.
Yes. Thank you for tagging me every time. I love it.
Like to get involved with interesting people, that are doing really interesting things. And it's funny. So, Kathy, you asked me sort of why I kind of changed. About 4 years ago, I sat down and I wrote out all the things that I wanted to do, and it was to be challenged on things that I didn't understand, to continue to grow my my knowledge and to connect with cool people. And I actually wrote all these things down, and the dollar figure was never on there. It's not I want to make $1 million. It was just what did I want to do, all those things. So it all just ties into that. I'm having amazing conversations with amazing people that in some way, want to get their dreams and aspirations and their hopes fulfilled. And where you can help them and where that alignment comes in, you just try and do what you can to do that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Ronan. I really appreciate the time and availability to speak with us. We are a new media platform, and as I mentioned, our aim is to create content, or to have content and stories that really are, that give insights that are inclusive, that is current, and that is, inform people without really triggering fear. And so I'm really grateful that you've been able to contribute to our discussion today.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll have you back on again.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Ronan.